Excellent. Welcome to the June 12th, 2024 BAR large meeting at the Public Meeting Room at 2 George Street. I'm John Robinson. I will be your chairman this afternoon and evening. Other board members present today are Jay White, Luda Sobchuk, James Metters, Seton Brown. City staff present are BD Wortham Galvin, our city architect, Lawrence Courtney, our staff architect, and Travis Galley, senior preservation planner. He was here. Did he disappear?
No, he's not here. He's out sick.
Got it. Thank you for letting me know. The applicants who are appearing and presenting tonight have been required to submit all materials in advance of the meeting by the prescribed deadline. Staff will control the slide presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the applicable deadline in accordance with submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask the staff to advance to the slide that they would like us to see. The applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their names when presenting. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the City of Charleston Public Meeting Channel on YouTube. Your appearance here is your consent to be recorded. The order of each application presented on our agenda will be as follows. There will first be an introduction of the project by city staff for the benefit of the board and public. This is followed by the applicant's presentation, which has a 10-minute time limit unless extended by the chair at the request of the applicant. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, be they the owners, developers, designers, consultants, or other affiliates, should speak during this portion rather than later portions of the meeting. The applicant's presentation is followed by the public comment period. All applications are a part of a public meeting format. Written public comments were due yesterday at noon. To the extent that they exist, they've been disseminated to the board. They will not be read into the record unless it is requested by a board member and considered necessary by the chair. Any member of the public who is with us this evening and wishes to speak is welcome to do so by approaching the podium. Each person presenting from the public should give us their name and address for the benefit of the record, and also be reminded that there's a 2-minute time limit on those remarks. The applicant should not respond at that point to public comment. There's a later opportunity to do so. Public comment period is followed by city staff comments and recommendations. This is in turn followed by the applicant's response period or clarification to public and city and staff comments. The time limit for the applicant is 5 minutes. The applicant does not have to use the response period if they choose not to, and brevity is a virtue. The applicant's response period is in turn followed by board discussion and a vote on any given agenda item. At this point, the agenda presentation is over. Public comment is closed. The applicant may clarify inaccurate information, whether it's from the board or from city staff, by raising their hand and waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled on any given, will first be polled for comments and then for a vote on any given motion. That I am to reread the motion verbatim. If I've made a mistake in doing so, I should be corrected by the board member making the motion. Once the motion is in proper order and properly seconded, each member when voting should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor for purposes of clarity on the record. The results will be posted on the city website, which is charleston-sc.gov/BAR. This is a friendly reminder to both the applicants and members of the public that items that are not in the purview or germane to this board, be they traffic, lot coverage, livability, noise, or other considerations, as those are the purview of various other boards, such as the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Technical Review Committee, among our many committees in the city. As a preface, we have no agenda items which have been withdrawn or deferred at the request of the applicant or the city. Therefore, agenda item A1 is in order, which is approval of our minutes as published from the May 22nd, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as published? Motion and a second. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yeah, in favor.
Ms. Sobchuk?
Yeah.
Mr. White?
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
Thank you. And myself in favor, so it passes 4-0. Minutes are as published. We move to agenda item B1, which I will preface, and I know BD would have covered this anyway, for the benefit and reminder of our board members. This is a ministerial act. We are required to vote.
Sure. First application item is a request for third one-year extension of conceptual approval for renovation of rear facade originally granted on July 22nd, 2020 for 257-261 King Street in the Height District 3 and 6, Olden Historic District. And again, this is a vested right, so it is an automatic extension.
Thank you, Phoebe. Is there a motion to approve the extension of the vested right?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. White's made the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Metters, it's in proper order. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yea in favor.
Mr. Metters,
Yea in favor.
Ms. Socha, Mr. White,
Yea in favor.
myself, yea in favor. Thank you, Vivian. Agenda item B2.
Agenda item B2 is 93 Society Street. It is new construction in the old and historic district, and they are requesting review of mock-up panel with LED lighting. This is an aerial just to remind people of the context of where the project will be built. An applicant presentation. There you go. Yep.
Romano Architecture Design. I'm consulting Neil Stevenson on this project. The scope of the mock-up panel involves the cornice over the storefront there, which is a combination of painted metal and fluted glass. And then we have some metal lettering and signage, which is on the sample panel. And then the other portion is a corner of the curved marquee, which is again painted metal with fluted glass, metal ceiling. We have ironwork brackets, and then behind the fluted glass is a tape lighting detail. And we found a tape lighting fixture that has a pretty wide range of color temperatures, and then it dims down pretty low. We provided some pictures that we took for the night lighting, and I was thinking this morning, but I think the lights on as well. And then, these are the details for it. Both of them have the actual signage mounted on them right now. And then we included the construction details through each of the cornice work and the bracket detail. This is the signage for the curved marquee. It's a metal brass signage with pins into the bottom shelf above the fluted glass. And then there's a sample of the 2-bit signage, which is again metal signage fastened above the or onto the cornice work. This is a photo of the curved marquee with the fluted glass, and brass letters, and a photo of the sample of the cornice above the storefront. Sure, if the you control it too.
We can control it too, but you can control it.
Wasn't sure if the lighting was on there too or not.
I don't think so.
Well, I'll end with that. Unless you have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Romano. Any member of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda item this evening? Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendations?
Sure. While not formally presented at a board meeting, staff and board have reviewed a previous mock-up and appreciate the improvements made with this version. Previous concerns that have been addressed include all exposed fasteners have been eliminated. All glass and metal miters have been cleaned up and fasteners at metal have been eliminated. Sealants have been incorporated wherever the metal or glass meet the stucco wall and color matches wall. Clear spacers have been eliminated between the letters and the glass over the storefront and are being fastened to metal for a cleaner look. Concealed fasteners are being used to attach letters on the curved marquee to the bottom with adhesive to glass at back. The brackets below the curved marquee are located within the property and do not extend above the sidewalk or public right of way. Or if they did, they would need to have the 8-foot clearance. The brackets have been centered on the perimeter beam as requested. While not in BAR purview because it is not visible, staff encourage the pursuit of weather tightness at the top cornice relative to flashing details. Current construction at the mock-up shows top sloping into the wall and not away from the wall, which is best practices. Based on site visit, staff believes board would be open to painted copper as opposed to lead-coated copper as a material that would simplify workmanship and construction issues, particularly achieving high quality, soldering joints. Painted copper may simplify workmanship as lead-coated copper will need top-grade craftsmanship during construction. There are no conditions for approval, and staff recommendation is for mock-up approval with board and staff comments.
Thank you, BD. Any response, Mr. Romano? Okay, board discussion.
This version of the mock-up is far superior than the first one, and I agree with staff's comments and recommendation. And I think we did discuss copper versus lead coated. Since it's painted, there doesn't seem to be an advantage to lead coated copper, but I would say that that's really more of an owner and architect decision.
Agreed. I would move for approval with board staff comments.
Motion for mock-up approval incorporating board and staff comments. Yes, sir.
And I'll second that.
And the second, Mr. White. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Metters?
Yay.
Ms. Subject?
And
Mr. White?
Yeah, in favor.
And myself, yea in favor. Passes 4-0. Thank you to the applicant. Agenda item B3, 860 Morrison Drive.
All right, 860 Morrison Drive is new construction in the historic corridor district. They're requesting conceptual approval for a 250-key Plimpton hotel with 16,000 square feet meeting and banquet area, lobby level market bar, and 2-meal rooftop restaurant and bar with pool, and a 4-story mixed-use out parcel building.
Very good.
And again, we're just orienting you to the location of this overall. Otherwise, I believe we're ready for the applicant presentation. I love that he brings presents every time.
Yeah, every time. Good afternoon. My name is Brooke Taylor. I'm with TBS Design, Atlanta, Georgia. Joined by Eddie Bellagares. We're here last month. We got some clear direction from this group, and we're going to walk you through in a pretty efficient manner. I heard Mr. Robinson say that brevity is appreciated. So we're going to keep it short. We're going to move through this quickly. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and advance the slides. So we'll walk through this. So as you see here, these are the list of comments that came back direct from the board. Again, study the length of the solid wall on what is the northwest corner, which faces Morrison Drive. We'll walk you through that shortly on the hotel tower. Continue study of the south facade. I think there were some concerns about how we were getting more detail on the north facade. It needed to carry through on the south facade. We'll walk you through how that's starting to evolve and change, and you'll find that that's a vast improvement. And last but not least was continuing to study the surface parking. So there were some comments about addressing the pedestrian activity there, allowing kind of pass through and creating some screening opportunities from that second level balcony. Again, the site location we saw just a minute ago, we're not going to dwell on that. Context photos, we'll move through these rather quickly just to get you oriented on the site. Again, very similar to what we've seen before. This is the previous concept that we presented last month. So as you notice, as we flip to the next.
At some point, the
I think the
remote
clicker
gets,
died.
yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Just
next
let
slide.
Lawrence know, yeah.
Can you go back? There you go, thank you. So here is the new and improved version, specifically as we looked at the parking area to the rear of the lot, you see on the bottom right there. The idea is to create more of a pedestrian link from what would be the arrival courtyard through to an existing path that would actually to a path that would join up with phase 2 path and eventually connect to future paths along the waterfront. Along with the path itself, we've introduced more trees. So again, kind of providing shading opportunities down there. Just above that, you've got the pre-function porch that's one level up. So again, kind of trying to screen views from the porch, create shading opportunities on that, visibility and so on. And then obviously try to get more green on the site. You notice 2 color shades, so looking at starting to articulate that surface with different material types. So we'll get into more detail on the next phase on that. Next slide, please. This is just moving up through the floor plan. We're not going to dwell on these. We're going to continue. I think the clicker is working again. As we move up through, no dramatic changes here in the plans. Again, kind of looking at the hotel tower before and after. Let's move through here again at the roof, pool, pool space, as well as a restaurant, retail, restaurant, F&B component with outdoor terraces. All right, so section diagram, again, just, we shared this with you last time. This shows the difference between where we were before and where we are now. We're gonna focus more specifically shortly on the south elevation. Materials have not changed at this point. This is scale and mass, as we showed the previous slide. So here, this aerial view, focusing a little bit more on the south facade. Again, the comments that we received from the board last month were that we need to start to break that facade up, create some relief, if you will, between the patterning. So as you start to see on the screen here, you start to see some breaks in that grid-like pattern on the facade. So you get some interruptions in that. You get hotel rooms that live within more solid panels and some that live within the frame. So again, that's a response to what we're doing on the north. You're starting to see that here on the south. Views from Morrison, looking back through what is the hotel on the left, office on the right. Again, previously we presented the idea of opening that view up. Again, you see that has not changed. That's still consistent with last time. South elevation. Again, the top is previous elevation and the bottom is the current. So you're starting to see the patterning, the grill-like pattern on there was fairly relentless, I think was the comment we received from the board previously. So we started to create some breaks in that to get some more solid areas there, but still have windows, knowing that we've got units on that side or rooms. So we need to accommodate the fenestration of that. So you're starting to see that as an expression in the facade. No change here on the Morrison Drive activation zones, again, terracing up from the street, creating outdoor seating zones and activity spaces along the street. A particular importance here is the addressing this northwest corner. Mr. Menders, there was comments last time regarding the amount of solid on this leading edge out to the street. You see in the top view here. So what we've done is reduce that by roughly 42%. We've actually added more fenestration there, another 13'6" of fenestration to again get more fenestration on that facade, limit the amount of solidness on that corner. So I think you see the image on the bottom there. You can reflect that. Again, a before and after. This is a pretty clear kind of direction. You see above is where we were last month, and then the bottom is where we are this month. So again, a reduction in that solidness. A couple vignettes begin to show that. I think again the perspective is a little skewed, so it's probably not helping as much. We're going to pause here for a second because this shows exactly what we just talked about, but furthermore, it shows some articulation on the base of the building. So you can see down along the base, we've introduced more fenestration in that. Well, it's really the first level, which is the elevated level, as well as on the upper level where the roof and we get the restaurant spaces, you're seeing more articulation with glazing in there. I think that was certainly a comment that came up last time. Want to make sure we address that in this presentation, as well as creating some relief at the base. So that horizontal element down at level 1, pushing that base back to get some shadow play in there, get feel a little bit more recessed and less mass. Corresponding north elevation. So again, you see the difference in that northwest corner, solid area up on Morrison. Views from the on-ramp. Again, stuff we've covered before. Hard to pick up the difference here, but very subtle differences on this facade. Again, here you can see, and I think that's, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. Again, just, you're not picking up any differences in here. It's really just the before and after. These are the office building adjacent to the hotel. No changes at this point, no comments from previous EAR meetings. Continued as we were over that. Elevations, perspective views looking north on Morrison Drive. Again, same composition of the two buildings. Elevations, general massing. I think it's important to note this. We covered this last time. We took 2 floors out from the previous concept. So by taking that 2 floors plus or minus 35 feet, really kind of brought the mass or the height of the tower down. So I want to remind everybody that we did change that at that time. Materials, plants, we'll get into that in later phases. And this is where we end. Again, we've got covered all the things that we talked about last time, all the comments. I think we addressed those pretty thoroughly. So anxious to hear everybody's feedback. What we've done at this point. Thank you.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you. Public comments on this agenda item. Is there any member of the public who wishes to be heard on this project?
Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We appreciate the applicant's response to the board's direction to reduce the amount of blank wall space on the hotel, especially at the top floor in the north elevation. However, these fairly minor moves do not address fundamental issues with the scale and massing of the proposal. At 100 feet longer than the office building next door, we want to reiterate that the proposed footprint would result in a football field size building between the city and its waterfront, which would be an overwhelming and permanent addition to the coastal skyline that will negatively impact interior views from downtown Charleston. At the last meeting, a board member made a comment that this part of the peninsula is developing an anywhere field. And as this project is still being reviewed at a conceptual level, we ask the board to heed this warning and defer the project as proposed in favor of scale and massing more appropriately suited to Charleston's distinctive character. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Other members of the public wishing to be heard on this item? Okay, city staff comments, recommendation?
Sure. Applicant had previously addressed request for the mixed-use building to unify architectural expression between the base piers and the main volume of the building. At the May 22nd presentation, board and staff supported the conceptual direction of the mixed-use building. Applicant responded to board and staff concerns to study and modify the surface parking area to include a public access to natural portion of the site by providing a landscaped and hardscaped walkway that would connect to proposed Railspur Park Trail system and pedestrian connection to Wanderers Way that would be developed in the future. Applicant also added plantings along surface parking to screen it from the rest of the site. Staff approve of these first steps towards the continued development of the rear portion of the site devoted to parking. At the May 22nd meeting, board and staff asked for refinements to the compositions of the north and south facades on the hotel tower with board motion of deferral, specifically requesting for, quote, restudy of amount of blank or open wall space on the hotel structure, end quote. Applicant has addressed the previous blank wall space on the north facade by adding fenestration to the rooftop structure, the main portion of the tower near Morrison Drive, and at the base of the hotel building. The additions of windows in all three of these areas have improved the overall composition of the north facade and reduced the amount of blank wall space. As the new, longer but lower mass of the hotel provides compositional and detailed challenges for the north and south facade, staff require further refinement at the preliminary stage. Staff conditions for approval. 1, continue to refine the compositions and materials of the north and south facades on the hotel tower to compositionally and architecturally deal with length of building mass during preliminary phase. 2, continue to refine the proposed public walkway and landscaping details in the surface parking area during preliminary phase. Staff recommendation is for conceptual approval with board and staff conditions.
Thank you, Vicky. Any response from the applicant at this time?
I'm gonna say a couple of real quick words.
Sure.
Eddie Bella with Fellow Harris. Again, just to remind everybody, last time there wasn't really any discussion about the height, scale, and mass of the building. I think we feel it's very appropriate to the Upper Peninsula zoning district. It just encourages and recommends, and certainly the character that's up there now is one more step in the architectural direction that's already been established. So that wasn't raised last time, but I feel like I just want to get that out there. We responded to all the comments the board brought up last time. And so we, hopefully that's all we need to do this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bello. Board comments.
So I want to tell you, I appreciate your brief presentation and also the way you addressed the comments that were made last week or 2 weeks ago. So thank you very much. And I think I can support this one, no problem. But I thank you for doing it.
Yeah, I can support it as well. It's tough when you see something multiple times at the same stage of review. Keeping in mind where we had set the guardrails previously and not shifting them unexpectedly. But I agree with staff's analysis, their comments and recommendation.
Yeah, I would add that this board is not prescriptive for folks who haven't heard that in a while, so we don't dictate what the style is. Another issue is, which Mr. Bello has mentioned, and which I think is fair, is that the unique characteristics of this North Morrison Drive corridor are driven by things that are not necessarily the purview of this board. And while I hear those issues and complaints, I don't know that they're within the ambit of what we have to do. We have to look at height, scale, and mass, general architectural direction, certainly the context of what is the neighborhood or the built environment around this building. In terms of specific comments that the board has made and that the applicant has attempted to address, I feel that they have in good faith addressed the specific objections that we have made, which is important to note as part of making a record as a public board.
In this application is previously as well, so. Yeah, it's done deal for now.
Further board comments?
I can introduce a
A
motion.
motion.
I'll introduce a motion for conceptual approval with board and staff comments.
Mr. White's made a motion for conceptual approval incorporating board and staff comments. Is there a second? Ms. Sobchak seconds. The motion's in proper order. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Not in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yay, but
Ms. Sobchak?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. White?
Yeah, in favor.
And myself, yea, in favor. Thank you to the applicant.
Thank you.
Agenda item B4, 635 King Street, Phase 2, Building 1.
I think this applicant has materials they want to set up. so
Sure.
we can-
Take a moment as we clear the room and adjust those materials. Thank you.
And what stuff was that she go- we should have this in shelter for the ones?
Start.
No.
Wind up, Jay?
Well,
Not quite.
you know,
What about this way?
I was gonna say, this is government work, so it's.
Smetters would like it at a 20-degree angle. Are we, are we okay to start? All right, just want to make sure. I didn't want to. All right, next applicant is 635 King Street, Courier Square Phase 2 building in the Canterbury Elliott Borough District. This is new construction in the old and historic district. Requesting final approval for a mixed-use building for the 600 block of Upper King Street. Just to remind everybody where we're talking about, there's an aerial. And otherwise, we leave it to the applicant to begin their presentation.
Good afternoon. This is on.
Yeah. it's on.
Good afternoon. My name is Christian Sotil. If I might respectfully ask for just a bit more than 10 minutes, I will do my best to move fast, but that's okay. I appreciate it. It's truly a great pleasure to be here tonight after over 2 years of dedicated work on this building. We're joined here by members of the team, Craig Clements, Hamilton Brindley from Sotil and Sotil, from the LF3P team, Dylan Tao and Brianna Deering are here. From the Graystar team, DJ Van Slambrook, Chrissy Pringle, and from the ACBA team, we actually have a number of students here tonight, and Sasha Rosen, and so many of the faculty. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to for all the coordination over the last 2 years now. So I'd like to dive right in. We began the process actually in 2022 with the initial design charrette. Conceptual approval was in June of that year. The preliminary approval was in October of 2023. And we are here before you tonight after 8 months of loving and dedicated work. The staff board and comments from the preliminary approval are included in the packet that you have. Many were complimentary of the ambitious details. There was a healthy concern about being able to execute on those details and the inevitable process of DD and all the things that you do to bring a project to completion. So we're here tonight after bringing all of these drawings and details to completion. And as an entire team, including the ACBA, we are very proud to say that we have made it. So, we include in our set for continuity some of the process, but I'm going to just kind of move over that with you tonight. But we like to include just for completion, sort of a reminder of the journey that we've been on. Let's pop out. And just see if that goes. If I can't move quickly, I'm going to be take even more time. See if we can. See if that works. Oh, maybe not. Sorry. Oh, it worked.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I said, we're going to go through this this part of the presentation quickly. But suffice to say, it's an extremely significant site on Upper King Street, a site that will soon be transformed by all of these many projects that make up the Courier Square area for its next chapter. And it's a site that connects westward to the Canterbury Elliott Borough neighborhood. The design charrette helped us focus on priority of making a whole building for this site and remembering that it would be the details that would bring it to life, and that skyline matters, and that Charleston's exuberance should be our guide. So these 5 statements emerged as a call to action for the project, and they have been our measuring guide and our test ever since in every decision. And they're all really founded on humane principles. The master plan situates the building into its larger context, addressing each of its four frontages: King Street with 3 pavilions, Gabriel's Alley connecting to St. Philip Street, Ackerman's Garden, which is a private residential area, and St. James Court, which is set back from Line Street, offering the vehicular entrance and a tall parapet in the skyline for a regional perspective. We've prepared new perspective views to put in concert with the approved views from the conceptual design, preliminary design. So these views illuminate the building from these major vantages. This first one is the view from the elevated parkway, the 7th and Clark. And here really the design feature is the rolling form of the parapet that coordinates with the corner tower of building number 2, which sits in the foreground. You can see that comparison. This view is taken down Bogart Street towards St. Philip Street, and it reveals the neighborhood residential entrance. Flip to the final view there. And here, this entrance is actually set back within the new Oak Park that's there. We actually sort of edited the oak out of the view because it would actually obscure quite a bit of the building, but still you'd see a clear view to the entry below into the neighborhood and the gabled form in the skyline. This view from King Street highlights the local skyline. I'm going to flip to the final. And you can see here the 3 pavilions at level 5 to really create a rhythm in that local skyline and the upper architecture beyond, sitting back quietly with a softening rhythm and a rolled cornice and a gable parapet. You can see that gable parapet to the north that's there for the that elevated view. And then, of course, very clear entries at the street level. Speaking of clear entrances at the street level, the main entrance on King Street has been a real focus for the work. And it's really meant to be an exuberant celebration and sort of coming together of painting, sculpture, and architecture. As we move down the connecting alleys, this is Gabriel's Alley, which connects us down toward Cannonboro, Elliott Borough neighborhood and St. Philip Street. This is really meant to showcase the texture and the character of the alleys and these bay balconies. And I do want to point out here that the bay balconies that you see in this view have actually been reduced by 1 level since the preliminary design approval. So this is a good view to kind of take that in, because you'll see the movement of that upper skyline as you walk through the alley at a pedestrian level. That's an evolution in the design that we've brought to completion. And then this view is in Ackerman's Garden, which is that private residential garden. And it really is well here to highlight the rhythm of the residential entrances and the continuation of architectural details throughout the project. Our architectural drawings are indexed here. There is a lot here. I'm going to move through these quickly, but you also, to note, have approximately 800-page set of drawings in your files as well. This is an excerpt from that full set. And here we include sort of the comparisons of the floor plans. And I will say with the floor plans, there's really been no changes in the final document. So they are included here for reference, the approved design and the final design, level by level. As we move to the elevations, the comparative elevations are a good place to talk about some of the further development, refinement as we work to completion. Here we're looking at the front view. The upper elevation is the approved design. The one below it is the final design. And on King Street, the facade we're looking at here, the only thing I can point to really that would be different would be that the buttresses, which are sort of these rolled elements as you move from level 4 to level 5. Previously, some of them had been done in brick, some had been done in metal, some had been done in castings. And for consistency here and integrity, we actually made them all brick. So that's a small development in that. Similarly, on Ackerman's Garden, the buttresses that you see to the left and right at the transition of 4 to 5 have been all rendered to have consistent detail. So we look at the alley. This is Gabriel's Alley. Here As I mentioned, you can see that the bay balconies have been lowered to create, and in fact, really it creates, we think, better human scale, but also more consistent detailing as we move around the building. The bay balconies meet the parapet in a similar way now on the other sides of the building. So we felt like this certainly is an improvement from a detailing point of view as well. And some other minor edits as we've worked through final detailing. You'll see we've removed dryer vents that were in the end pavilions that were more prominent before. And there's been a little bit of adjustment in some of the gusset detailing at the end pavilion windows. If we look at the comparative elevations on St. James Court, here again, you can see the reduction of the vents in the end pavilions, the buttresses, as I mentioned, and the bays here actually set a good standard for how the bays meet the parapet there. You'll also see increased detailing in the upper parapet, which is work that we'll talk about that's been developing in concert with the ACBA. As we look at this section here, this is a section cut through the building, which shows the private facades of the courtyard, the elevated courtyard. Here, we made a strategic decision in detailing, and this is something we did discuss with Lawrence and Dee Dee as we were working through the final documentation. And what we did here was we made the facades in that private courtyard on the sides simpler in order really to gain a higher level of quality on the public facades. I want to talk about that as we continue on. It was an important part of the decision-making process that actually allowed us to do some things that we really wanted to do. But I will say, even in the simplified version, which is not a public facade, but even the simplified version here is in fact still brick and still copper detailing on hoods over balconies. So it's still, it's more of an old-fashioned way to think about how a building should be simple on a private facade. What it allowed us to do was to actually render all of the upper cornices of the building that you see on all the public facades in French seamed natural copper for the project, which I'm really excited about. So that becomes the prevailing detail for the upper cornice of the building is true Mexican. You can see that here on the rear facade. In fact, even at the back of the pool deck, we've maintained that same detail as an amenity to the. So those comparative elevations were really my opportunity to point out the evolution of the design. As we go through the set, we have the enlarged floor plans here for reference. And as we move to elevations, you'll see in the set there's a series of R sheets, which are reference sheets which control the building's exterior detailing. This first group shows all sides of the building, which we've seen already, we've talked through in the comparatives. If you move through that set, the 300 series sheets are the enlarged elevations, which show really entire facade assemblies. So you can see all those details in context locally, segment by segment on the building. There are 19 of those sheets in the 300 series. So move around the building. And as we move further into the set, after the 300 level drawings, we reach the 400 series. And at the 400 level, everything, of course, again, increases in scale. And here we're able to show elevations, sections, reflected ceiling plans. We're able to really get to geometric resolution. And it's true that, with anything, the more you zoom in, there's always more to detail. And this is very much what these sheets were allowed us to all work through. And importantly, also, to work through in concert with the ACBA in real time, we're looking at the central keystone in this particular view, and you can see we're working sort of hand in hand between manual drawing and computer drawing. And I think that's something that we found really exciting about this project is that certain tools are just the best for the things that you are doing. And so it's been a really exciting process to work with both hand and computer medium and also tying that into the actual process of preparing the part. So the 400 series Deals first with masonry conditions throughout the building. You'll see those as we go through. A lot of them dealing with the unique, that laurel arch geometry, which is, compound ellipses with multiple origin points. We have intermittent flipping.
Let's see if Lawrence can forward.
Yeah.
for you.
Not again. Reach up.
I know, it's a fairly large document.
I think it's fair to say that this is the largest maybe that's ever been attempted. I'm not getting any broken VR.
We can all come around my little computer here.
Yeah.
So while this is going on, just ask you a question. You've referenced American College of Building Arts several times. What part of this project will they be performing?
I actually have a section I want to talk about that, but they'll be doing work throughout the project. So there's certain focuses at key public entry points, but we've actually been looking at a strategy to include the presence of the CBA throughout the entire project. So it's not just a token moment, but there's pervasive detail throughout.
So just at the complacencies of some of these details, I'm excited about them having the opportunity to do that. And recognizing the responsibility that it might take more than once on some of these things.
That's right. Yes. And there's a variety of ways of approaching it. So in the stonework, there are individual one-of-a-kind stone carvings in the form of decorative inserts. In fact, one of them we have here is an example of those keystones, one of a kind. But then there are other elements that are more repetitive that will be cast, but they'll be cast from original clay models, so that the presence of the human hand is present even in an element like a pilaster capital or a pilaster base, where we have 200 of them, but they'll all have the presence of the craft of the original clay model as the mother mold for that. So in terms of the stone and the sculpting, that work is integrated throughout, and finding dimensional control for that so that it can be integrated.
We're trying not to.
The
Should be able to.
inserts there are designed to
Put it
course in with the bricks as as the brick is being laid, goes out.
We're doing
they're
normal
designed to be,
Yeah.
course directly into the masonry, so they become integral.
So it's the challenge of saying, okay, this person's gonna work it to here, and then we're gonna take an isolated piece and carve it, and then put that in, and then continue on with something else that's being cast somewhere else. It's hard, when somebody is doing it all, there's a continuation, but
Yeah,
I was just thinking that through, and it would be,
well, there are a series of things, like there are 4 keystones that are the 4 seasons, and that one group of students, in fact, I think ours is here, and others ours, are actually, in fact, already carving these over the last year. Brilliant stone carver. So developing consistency kind of in series as we.
that's exciting.
So Christian, as long as we don't go to full view, which we're worried will bring back the poltergeist, if you don't mind, it's forwarding it backward right now. We're just trying not to cut off the
Thank
live
you.
stream.
Okay,
while
thank
fixing
you.
it.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep going. So these are the masonry details in the 400 series.
So there's one of those.
Yeah, in fact, in this view, you'll see
floor.
two of the inset. You'll see that larger square, and then you'll see centered above the pilaster, you'll see a smaller inset.
And it's that.
Which is that.
That's on the floor.
And then
Do you want to try and walk forward on your own? You may just need to ask Lawrence to forward.
I think you can keep your finger on the trigger. And I'll just kind of talk as we go, but this is the masonry set, and you can see there's, everything needed to be shown independently, but there's great effort and consistency in the detail and language. If we move up to the upper masonry parapet, you'll see this is coming up, a monumental decorative iron panel that will be executed with Matt Garten and his team in the iron blacksmithing program at ACBA. This is going to really be a beautiful feature for the skyline. So you'll see these details as we move through that 400 set. Sawtoothing, gauging of brick, integration of sculpted panels at the architrave, capitals and bases for pilasters, which, as I was just mentioning, Mr. Matters, would be based on mother molds that were hand sculpted in clay. Yeah, and that's a good example of that. Where here, this is where the computer kind of lets you down, and so the computer controls the overall form and dimensions. So we can reconcile drawings to the model to the carving, but then it's the work of the artist that can then draw that, render that, and that gives the stone carver direction. And Hamilton Brindley on the team is here, and I think it's his design we have to thank for these beautiful drawings that we have on the particular page. So keep moving. As we move through the masonry details, we move on into millwork details. We'll see those as we move through the set. Yeah, so these bay balconies are really millwork intensive. They do have copper underpans as they roll back to the buildings. As you walk down the alley, you'll see that as the underpan of those and decorative detailing within the spandrels. So as we move through the set, we get to the top of the building. These are, or move into the alleys, where here you can see these raised terraces. This is also an element where there's a recurring set of details or pilasters that are engaged between these bay windows that are part of that ACBA sculpture program.
Also the gates.
And the metal gates, yeah, this is also, the ironwork is really featured at the street level here, and individual unique gates for those residential entrances, along with lighting. At the upper part of the building, the top of the building, there's a lot of development work here with this rolled cornice, and we're extremely excited to be presenting this in natural copper. I think this is going to be a really important detail because it will all be hand seamed. There'll be a French seam detail. We work carefully with the material properties to be able to finalize this detail. And then also in concert with certain copper decorative elements like the foot leaf detail you see as it transitions onto the brick here, which we actually have an example of here. The Lawrence cube. And as we move through the 400 series, we move into enlarged details for ironwork railings. This is a trellis at the resident level, the terrace. Storefronts at King Street, real attention to millwork detailing there. And then we start to move into enlarged masonry details for jack arches, headers, sills, and jambs. So we have all those details enumerated here as we kind of move through the balance of these masonry details, the 400 level. We've touched on some of the ACBA work already, but we do have some of those images here, some that we had shared at preliminary, and they've been further refined and finalized. So really going from vision to implementation. You'll see the central keystone here, the embodiment of architecture. I'm really pleased to say this is actually in progress now. The team has taken Joseph Kincannon, who leads the stone carving program, has been just absolute joy to work with and has really helped us define all these details. So you can see the Four Seasons. This is a sculpted acanthus leaf detail that will flank the main entrance on King Street. And then we have sculpted cast hoods over the residential entrances. We move down Gabriel's Alley and Ackerman's Garden. We have impost blocks here that flank the main entrance of King Street. Parapet portal. And I guess I would say all in all, there are 88 hand carved stone pieces that are original carvings in the design. And then more than 200 details that are cast from original sculpture molds, including things like the acroterion, the urns. And then we move into some of the decorative lighting. There's a series of feature lighting fixtures for the building that we're working with the program to develop now. A feature corner fixture at King Street, and then this is some of the stone carving in the alley. So those are the R sheets. We next have a sampling. As I said, you have 800 pages of additional drawings in your file. The drawings that LS3P has done, Bill and Brianna are here tonight, but I also have to thank their entire team. They've had an amazing team working on this and have built extremely sophisticated Revit model of this project. So as we go through this set, this is a sampling of the many section details and assemblies to construct the building. We have a group here, and they've done a really beautiful job of sort of breaking it down section by section and then zooming in on those details. So you have all the assemblies behind the finishes. And this model crashes our computers too.
Well, yours is also not super set with other applicants too, so.
So, and then this, of course, also includes all the window and door geometries as you move further into the set. Including those unique shaped windows.
Mr. Chairman, sorry if I
Sure.
need to ask a question. If we were to go back to sheet A 352.2. 350. It's a part of LS3Ps.
James is gonna test the computers and
Oh,
go back and forth.
It's not that important. It's actually pure interest. So, as you're going up to the top of the right-hand drawing and you have these corbels in this brick that's working its way out to the cast stone capital. Is there, like I saw one of the clock towers that you had drawn for down in Savannah. And some of those were cast already and then we're going to be put in place. Is any of that happening here, or will all of this corbelling be done, on the site?
So the corbel, the brick, the masonry will be assembled on site. We've been working with Pride Masonry now for, I think it's a year and a half. Yeah, at least that seems like more. But we've been working. We brought a mason on board to work through the best way to construct these assemblies, and we did explore the idea of fabricating whole assemblies and then installing. But found the best way was that every brick really belonged in the hand of the mason being laid. So what you're seeing in these assemblies is the corbelling is the result of the master mason in the field, and then the cast elements, of course, the cornices, and the banding is set within that, and there's steel angles as needed to support those assemblies as buildings constructed. So these facades aren't being fabricated sort of off-site and brought to the site; they are being made on the building. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I mean, this is extensive corbelling with a heavy cast. I think it's beautiful. I look forward to watching that be built. It's very nice.
Yeah, I think as we move to the end of this set, we do have, so door, we're back where we were. We have door and window schedules identified here. Head jam and sill details. Again, the full building assembly. We do have a working premise for the mock-up assembly as well in this set. On to it. Yeah, this is just to point out what we're looking at here would be a three-sided solution for the mock-up. So one side really deals with the upper architecture, the rolling cornice, the compound ellipse that develops that all that architecture that kind of helps the building terminate at the top. The second side of the mock-up deals with the alleyways and the more millwork intensive passages as we move down Gabriel's Alley or Ackerman's Garden. And then the third side deals with the normative details of King Street, the pilasters, the corbelling associated with those. So that's our working premise for the mock-up. That's here for just some discussion tonight. So we continue to work with the staff. And then we move into materials and specifications. I do want to note we are asking for approval tonight of materials, recognizing the long lead time, the amount of sequencing that's already gone on. So we have brought physical samples of those with us tonight for your hands-on review. We have those summarized here in these pages, and you can see we've maintained complete consistency from the conceptual through the preliminary. It's a light color buff brick. I can tell you, I think we have exhausted every single buff brick currently being made, and we're very, very pleased with the selection that we brought here tonight. It's a Belden brick, Lakeshore blend. It's absolutely a premium. This is one of those value decisions that we made as we worked through the project. But it was just, we think it's gorgeous. It has a hand molded, sand molded quality to it. It's not industrial production brick that we often see. And it's a delicate type of color. It's got a very nice variegated blend to it. So I encourage you to look at that closely. We think it's beautiful. Also, as we said, the development of using natural metal for the cornice was something that came through this final detailing, which we're extremely excited about. I think that works beautifully with that buff brick and with the Alabama limestone that you see in the carved sample that's here, the Silverstone, Alabama limestone. We've also been working carefully with the casters that will be doing the cast elements to develop a handmade quality to those. We often see cast stone, looks like it sort of got, kind of came out of a plastic mold. And so first of all, they'll come out of molds that were made by human hands. But secondly, we've worked through a number of samples to get salts and sodas into those molds before they're cast so that you get a variegated finish. So that large slab that you see there is the working sample that we brought for your review tonight to look at a much more a patinated finish to that cast stone. So we're really excited about that. We think that's really important as it kind of ties to everything that you see. And we've also introduced some soft greens and some of the millwork in the project, which works really beautifully with this color palette that we. And also, of course, copper as it patinas.
But you're calling out ferrule and ball paint. You're really using ferrule and ball paint on.
We're using those colors, and those are control colors. Yeah.
It's gonna be Sherwin-Williams.
I was just like,
Yeah, and we have a note that these are the control colors, and often, I mean, the mock-up will be our proof of concept, but if the manufacturer's color that is, for example, the bronze on the windows, our goal is Farrow number 36 mahogany, but we will work to develop colors as close to the mix as possible, or if it's a mix from a commercial manufacturer. But yes, those colors you see there are from that palette of color codes, which we also have spent a lot of time working through. We've also, we are specifying ES windows in the project. I want to point that out. I don't have a physical sample of those with me tonight, but these are windows that have been approved and are being used both on the Four Seasons Hotel and the 529 King Street project. And in fact, ES Windows has set up a showroom on King Street. So they are here in Charleston. We've had a chance to really look at what they're offering. I think it's a really good choice for the project. So we have included sample cut sheets of those windows and doors in the set. And then we included a section here as we close out the document to really to thank ACBA for their work over the last 2 years. And this sort of the practice, the art of building. Some of this is material we shared at preliminary, and many of these details were inspired during the charrette as we developed the building design. But as we move through, you'll see some of that early work being done. Those keystones. This is an earlier version. They're actually all 4 of those are now fully complete. There was actually an article in the city paper that I was featured on carving one of those keystones that happened in December after our approval, which we were really excited about. And then actually most recently, I think this next page, Lawrence will show us, some of the final work on those upper keystones on King Street coming into completion here. These are 4 seasons of the year and 4 seasons of architecture. So we have Art Nouveau in the spring, we have full-blooded classicism in the summer, we have a Baroque fall, and we have a chilly Gothic winter. So there's a narrative that kind of runs through the building. It's been beautiful to see that developing. And actually, most exciting, the central keystone, Justin, is here. Joseph is in the top left photo there, examining this massive block of limestone, and Justin is helping to bring that embodiment of architecture forward out of that solid block. So this is happening in real time, and we're so excited about it. So thankful, and really for all the partners. We feel like a project like this is really about raising a new life in the city, and it takes a whole community to do that. We've had an amazing team working on this, amazing collaborators and partners and stakeholders. Certainly Preservation Society and Historic Charleston have been partners with us from the beginning, leadership in the Canberra, Elliott Borough neighborhoods. We're thankful. We feel like the whole family is here tonight. And I will close on that note, and happy to answer any questions or have our team answer any questions you may have.
Packed a lot into that 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Sotil. Any questions from the board at this time? I know we've had a few already. Seeing none, we'll be back with you in just a minute.
Before public comment, can I make a comment? to
Oh, of
the
course,
public
yes.
benefit? So several times, Christian Sotil did mention there's an 800-page document. It was not included in the image overview for probably obvious reasons, but it is a public document. So anyone wishing to see the full 800-page package, just contacts BAR staff and we will get it into the cloud for you to look at.
Thank you for noting that. Sure. Very good. Members of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Marion Hawkins. I'm the president of Canberra Elliott Borough Neighborhood Association. We'd like to thank Evening Post Industries as well as Greystar, and especially the team of Sotil for their working with our neighborhood throughout this whole design process. We're very excited about this project. We feel like on every level, it's good urbanism. It's great architecture. It will be an incredible project, not just for our neighborhood, but for the city of Charleston. Our neighborhood association at every meeting has supported this, and we would encourage the board to give approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Other members of the community wishing to speak.
Justin Schwebler at the Historic Charleston Foundation. We'd like to thank the applicants for meeting with us again to review the latest progress on this application. We would just like to congratulate the design and development teams for seeing this project through to final approval, while doubling down on your commitment to make something truly exceptional for our city. This is one of the most ambitious projects in Charleston in many years, and we applaud the team's commitment to excellence and authenticity, and we recommend final approval of 635 King. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwebler. Ms. Alexander.
Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston, and I'll join the chorus. Thank you to the Sotil and Sotil team for their continued outreach and your thoughtful response to the board's comments. We continue to be encouraged by this project, by the commitment to excellence and demonstrated commitment to craftsmanship and the level of detail that really is emblematic of Charleston's vernacular architecture. And we would just like to add in offering our support that we hope that this can set a new standard for new construction in the city of Charleston moving forward. And we're excited to see this design take shape. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public wishing to be heard. Seeing none, city staff comments.
Sure. I want to begin by echoing a comment made by previous city staff at your preliminary review. And that is, this package depicts a refinement of detailing and visible elements for the building since the previous work in October of 2023, which is amazing given the high quality of that at that time. The language around the building continues to be consistent, but varied depending on use and cohesive with many moments of delight and high level of craft. Staff commend the initial production results of the collaboration with the ACBA for some of the detail work. As often happens between preliminary and final, a few details have been changed as the applicant marries the cost of the project with the design intent. Staff support the following changes. The King Street and Ackerman Garden elevations remain substantially unchanged, with a minor modification to the parapets to now have an elliptical brick buttress with cast cap throughout. The Gabriel's Alley and St. James Court elevations also have the same change to an elliptical brick buttress at the parapet. In addition, the fifth floor has changed the geometry of the windows from almost full laurel ellipses to laurel arches. These changes still achieve the effect of having a hierarchical moment at that parapet. In addition, on the Gabriel Alley's elevation, the bay balconies are now a total of 3 stories below the parapet instead of an additional 4th story above the parapet. While this change was made to improve constructability, staff believe it also strengthens that facade composition. The most significant facade changes were made to the courtyard elevation, with the continuous bays of copper-clad elliptical arches being replaced by vertical punched windows with downspouts and porches, creating a rhythm on the facade. This version of value engineering is still at a higher standard than when most projects engage in cost savings. And staff approve of this change, which is marginally, if at all, visible from the public right-of-way, and particularly of the previously approved arched porch bay that turns the corner onto the courtyard elevation. Staff conditions for approval, and these are going to sound boilerplate, but it's our way of being on the record about continued conversation as we move forward. 1, any modifications to approved drawings required for code and fire department compliance or contemplated during construction must be approved by the BAR prior to undertaking the change. Any modifications, substitutions to the materials or elements approved at the final BAR hearing must be specifically noted, reviewed, and approved on the mock-up sample panel. Number 2, deviations from previously approved submissions, if determined by the BAR staff during or after completion of construction, to be a downgrade of the quality of the project and inconsistent with previous approvals, are not approved, whether noted or not by staff during our review of the four permit drawings. Our staff recommendation is final approval with board and staff conditions, with approval of all materials with final permit by staff.
Thank you, Edie. Any response from the applicant at this time? Very good. Board discussion.
This project has an astounding level of detail. It actually goes far beyond the typical of, 18th and 19th century Charleston architecture, but it's a fantastic exercise. It's something we've been looking for years, to see the evidence of the, College of the Building Arts, not in the preservation realm, but in the realm of new construction. So I'm eager to see the mock.
I'll just say, I'm aware that people have rooted against the successful completion of this project on constructability or cost grounds. And I will be very satisfied when it is built as the contractors and architects have envisioned, so that it will in fact set a new standard in Charleston that will be very easy to point to as the new standard for constructability.
Yeah.
Instead of tired excuses about how it cannot be done.
And as we were dialoguing while trying to get the slides to work, some of the corbelling detail that you called out, I could understand how it's done when it's a solid masonry wall and you're building it out and things are tied in with headers, but when it's not, is really going to be a challenge. And I mean, I want to learn from it because it's going to be hard. So I'm looking forward to learning. It's following up on what you were saying. Yeah.
I think this will be the best new building in a century in Charleston. So thank you for the hard work, and thank you to the students of the American College for sharing, first of all, choosing Charleston and sharing your talents with us too.
In my point of view on this, with architecture lately is kind of industrialized, modern. We forgot about human factor, but this is going back to the roots of craftsmanship and artists who are involved in the architecture and not just big crane and so it's very very encouraging. Yeah, there will be probably a bunch of challenges besides corbelling, because it's a craftsmanship, and do we have a pool of, I'm not taking back to can it be done, but this is encouragement that it can be done. So looking at sculpture, looking at the materials, looking at the overall architectural styles, and I think you combined a few styles here, which is fine. We're going from, I guess, Byzantine column to Corinthian and things like that, but I'm looking forward to see this built all together. So thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll introduce a motion for, approval with board and staff.
So, Mr. White, your motion would be for final approval
Yes.
incorporating board and staff comments.
That's correct.
Is there a second? Mr. Brown seconds the motion. It's in proper order. Mr. Metters, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Ms. Sobchak?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. White?
In favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, in favor.
And myself, yeah, in favor. Thank you to the applicant.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, agenda item B5.
So for B5, we are still at the same location. In this case, the request is for final approval for site improvements surrounding development of 4-story multifamily residential buildings. And we are ready for applicant's presentation.
Few samples to add. Not nearly as many.
The more the merrier.
Do y'all prefer me to use the clicker?
Let's just see what happens.
This one?
Forward.
Okay.
Do you have 800 pages?
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Ariane Wolf. I'm presenting the landscape for building 1 as well as the rest of the site. Buildings 2, 3, and 4. For the Greer Square Phase 2. I'm with Design Works. So thank you. Similar to what Christian has just presented, we were here last year in October for preliminary approval of the site. And the site had previously been approved at the conceptual level with the 4 individual buildings. But we felt that the site needed to be its own package since it wasn't as easy to break that up into 4 different landscape sets. So I will move rather quickly through these. There will be board and staff comments from our last time. I will get into a little bit more detail on our responses to these as we move through the package. But we have brought a few samples for you here. The one that I will note right now is one of the staff comments was that the drain grates be painted to match the materials that they were in. That's something that we disagreed with, and we do have a sample right here of the Iron Age grates. That's the baked on oil finish, which we're suggesting. It's a fairly common material. You see it throughout downtown. Iron Age makes really wonderful grates. This is not the pattern, but it does show the finish. For the most part, our plan has really not changed much since the last time we were here. We've really just refined the details. So you'll see on the following slide.
If not, you can just ask Lawrence to forward.
Okay, would you forward the next slide? There's really not a significant amount of change that you can see in the plan view. It's really been refining materials in coordination with the architects. The one major change or significant change that you'll notice in the plan, which I'll go through in a moment, is the area, the courtyard between building 1 and 2 on King Street, in coordinating all the utilities that are in there, mostly stormwater. We haven't been able to add trees, so that is now just a paved courtyard area. There will be trees and planters at some point, but nothing in the ground due to those constraints. So here's an image board of our site materials. We are mostly suggesting tabby with the pine hall brick. You'll see that sample here. There's one full-size paver that shows the rumbled look to it. And then the sample board just kind of shows you a little bit more variety in the color. We do have some natural cleft full color bluestone as well on site. I don't have a sample of that, but I'm sure you're all familiar. And then we have a small amount of plantation mixed paths in the Oak Park. And then in the driveway, we have a broom finished concrete, the diagonal scoring pattern and brick banding. So I'll go through these rather quickly. And here the only significant change is adding a small paved area under that oak tree. The oak tree, just as a quick update, this is a 37-inch grand oak that'll be moved on site. It has been root pruned in the last few months. All of that paving around it that you see in the upper photo has been removed. So they've been irrigating and fertilizing it, and that'll be essentially step one once the project is permitted. We'll get that tree moved and everyone's very excited about that. This is a zoom in on Ackerman's garden. This really has not changed substantially since you last saw it. And next we have St. James Court. Again, this is for the most part the same. Again, we've refined some of the details. You go to the next slide, please. And here you'll see that front courtyard. Previously, we did have 2 trees in there. With the utilities coordination, that wasn't possible. So now it has a bluestone band around the edge, and it has a brick field of paving. Get to the next slide, please. And then Gabriel's Alley. Here again, the plan hasn't changed. One of the comments that we did receive last time was the concern of having a tabby walkway with a brick border. And after studying the plan, we agreed with y'all. And so this is fully brick now. And so that will allow us to, when the Liberty side of the alley is constructed, they can simply take up that one side of brick and relay it. The edge, just that edge course, and then it'll feel like one full complete alley without the band down the middle. We think that's an improvement to the plan, and it will be, you know, a typical Charleston alley that we've looked at many times for our precedents. So here I have some of the details, and this is where I wanted to focus more of my time on. Just so that you could see. One of the main comments that we heard last time was about the fencing and the level of detailing in the fencing. So we went back and studied the plan a little further, and we have 2 changes to the fencing. One is we still have the wood fencing on most of the site. The one area that we still have the masonry wall is in response to the neighbors. And their requests. So we have that along Ackerman's garden. Everywhere else where we have the wooden fencing, we have it between masonry piers rather than just wooden posts. And you'll see that pier detail on the top. We really studied it to try to find a detail that had a slimmer column rather than just one that was based on the CMU structure underneath. And so we've achieved that. It's now a 2-foot column. Rather than, I believe it was like 2 feet 8 previously. We think it's a much slimmer profile, and we think that's an improvement for the project. So here's that fence elevation. You'll see that we have on the top is the current, and on the bottom was the previous detail. So you'll see that slimmer column, and then the fencing itself has been dressed up. We have tongue and groove boards. See, you can go to the next slide. We've got some decorative rails that are framing the fence panels. We have a wood cap on the top of those. All of the fence posts also have a copper pyramid cap on them as well. And we think that that has really dressed up the fencing, but it still keeps it it's in keeping with the historic structures that are surrounding it. Because these are mostly, this is really occurring at the areas where we have historic buildings, and the neighbors have really requested some fencing there. The ironwork, we have worked, just like Christian's team, to make sure that, and he does have the College of the Building Arts working on the gates, but the rest of the fencing, we've worked as well to make sure that these will be the same level of quality as the rest of the fencing on the site. The one change here, two changes, BD to your boilerplate comment, we are working through ADA accessibility and fire code access as well. And so you'll see there's a flat panel on the back of these that's indicated with that shaded area on the bottom, as well as in the middle. And that's, the bottom is for ADA access and the top is for a panic bar. These are occurring at Ackerman's Garden, and for egress purposes for building 4, they're required to meet fire code. The approach we've taken is to essentially leave the gate as we designed it, mostly intact, and then just add those flat panels to the back of it to meet those codes. So we're hoping that y'all agree with us on that approach. We certainly studied many different options, and this one seemed like it was most in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood. And this is the second gate. It's the same adjustments here. You go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And then this is the photometric plan. We do have some images in the following slides of the lighting that we've selected. You have a full copy of this. I did want to note on the image on the left that the photometric plan isn't incorporating any of the street lights, nor is it incorporating any lighting from the building. So you'll see that the edges of the site are quite dark, and I've added little yellow dots to where the street lights are happening. And so one of the things we discussed extensively at the last meeting was having what type of pole lights would be appropriate in the alleys. We really wanted to make sure that those were safe, and it wasn't just bollard lights. Everyone agreed that a pole light would be good. We did, I believe this has happened since we were here in October, but this is the selection that we've made. It's from Landscape Forms, and it's a really beautiful light. You can see here, these are taller than the pole that we've selected, but it has a little bit of a modern edge, but it's still a very traditional lamp post. And so these would be in the alleys as well as in the driveway. And then the Charleston typical streetlights would be in the public rights of way. So this was just to sort of bring a slightly different, feel to the private spaces, even though of course the alley is still a publicly accessible. We did want to differentiate it from the streets. And that is it for my presentation. I do have the full set of landscape drawings attached here. If you have any further questions, I'd be happy to go through those.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Any questions now? I didn't know if James was about to.
Well, I mean, just a comment.
Go ahead.
The city of Charleston has just been able to acquire the rights to the Charleston bench, the Merali, developed in the late 70s. And so they now have the patent on that and are producing it semi in-house. And you might want to look at it because some of the detailing on this is similar, but it's a little bit oversized, so it's very comfortable. It's not small, just for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Further board comments? Oops, Mr. Brown.
A question on the photometric plan.
Mhm.
So tell me the thought process of if these are alleyways that are open to the public and a park that's open to the public, why not continue with the same lighting style in those areas?
We discussed that, and we just felt like we wanted something a little bit different on the site. So we explored that option. In part two, it was because, there are some elements of, one of the things we like about the light, let me go forward, is that it's more reflected downwards, if you can see here. Whereas the other Charleston light sort of shines outwards, and so especially for the residents that are there, we didn't want too much of a glow into their bedroom, living room, whatever room is right there. We really wanted to keep the light facing downwards. So that was one of the major considerations.
Thank you.
Very good. Further board questions at this time? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Members of the public wishing to be heard on the exterior landscape architecture? Seeing none. City staff comments, recommendations?
At preliminary, board and staff requested the design of the wood fencing be improved. Applicant has elevated the fencing design to include masonry piers framing the fencing with a slim profile correlating to the courses of brick rather than the internal CMU structure. Also previously, board and staff requested restudy of brick banding and joints at St. James Court. Applicant has restudied so that the banding and joints occur at regular intervals that either correspond to the structures or produce a coherent pattern for pedestrians. In addition, the paving at Gabriel's Alley was also adjusted to be brick as requested. Applicant has provided a full photometric plan and has responded to previous staff comment about reducing the number of landscape lights and trees. Staff would provide a previous reminder that those few fixtures that do remain in trees should not be visible, as visible lighting is not preferred. Applicant has produced ironwork fencing plan that is of high quality across the site as requested. And while previous staff requested metal grates should be painted to match adjacent materials, current staff is comfortable of level of design and quality of grates being produced for the project and does not have the same condition. Staff conditions for approval are exactly the same for the building. So in other words, and I'll do the short version, any modifications need to be approved by the VAR prior to making any changes. And that obviously anything that we would consider a downgrade of the quality of the project as approved today is not approved. Staff recommendation is final approval with board and staff conditions with approval of all materials with final permit by staff.
Very good. Thank you. Any response from applicant? Okay, all right, good. I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I always feel like the landscape architects, when you break it out as a separate package, it's just like. But it's a really good job, and appreciate the consistency and the harmony of the details with the architecture. Looking forward to seeing it in the field.
It's a beautiful job. It's very consistent. I understand the concept of even though the public is allowed in this area, it's technically private. The public is allowed there. It's not a public right of way. And so differentiating it with lamps or something to cue a person that it is a private space in which the public is allowed is I'm very comfortable with. The brick banding was taken care of. I will just state for the record that I think I understand why we have the panic bars, I understand the ADA compliance requirements. I appreciate that the applicant thought that there was no need to downgrade the detail of the ironwork, even though this backing has to be placed on it. I think that was a good call. That would have been an easy place to come up with some value engineering, and you stuck to the guns of keeping the detail, even though you had to add this element that some might say detracts. And so I look forward to seeing it constructed. Further board comments?
Just a quick one. I'm kind of opposing the fact that we see more and more of these courtyards which are accessible to the public. And also because, yeah, they're not visible from the street, but they're livable. there another outdoor living space, and kind of what I grew up on in where I'm from. So and that's very encouraging again, the same word. So would like to see more and more of that, but we also have a precedent here. We have all these, residences which had a really nice courtyards on its own, on a smaller scale, but now we can have it access to it. So, great, thank you.
Further board comments?
Mr. Chairman brings up a good point with the lighting, and I totally understand the need for designation between public and private space and who owns what, but at least with the Oak Park, because you are looking to encourage more of the community into that area, I would hope that the lighting would be similar to what would be found in the rest of the city. Gabriel's Alley, completely understand. St. James Court, all of that, you need to show that that is part of your space, but Oak Park, if you're looking to bring the community in, then just, I would recommend reconsidering the lighting there, but overall, a wonderful project.
Any further board comment? Or a motion?
I'll introduce a motion for final approval with board staff comments.
The motion is for final approval incorporating board staff comments. Is there a second? Mr. Metters, it's in proper order. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yay.
Ms. Sobchak?
Yeah.
Mr. White?
Yeah, okay.
Myself, yay in favor. Thank you, Steve. That's it. Okay. Oh, all right, I'm telling you.
That's what made me a little bit nervous. I just want a little bit of
You'll have fair.
nothing else, but,
I think so. There's just too much.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry. It's not like sleeping.
We were getting at her.
They may be making an emergency. City. So if that happened, it was off the shoulder environment, right? Yes, right. And we'll see. That's right. Yeah, what happened is county told us they didn't allow it in 10 years. That it was gonna come. And with the notice, and the city was in the works because they had. Well, it's for me, it's an emergency because it's I wouldn't be in an emergency. Usually.
Like I do get, yeah, especially on the Gabriel's out.
It's supposed to be by the air. Because it's different.
Regards that are closed by, are they like cloistered off or are
That's
they?
right.
They might be close by.
Yeah. Okay, so that I can totally get, you know.
But. And then I'll emphasize